9:34 exactly, news and views on Salam Media. And next, we're going to be paying tribute to the late Dr. Farooq Meer, and to talk to us about this Durban Memorial celebrating the life and legacy of a patriot, a Democrat, and an activist. Dr. Farooq Moosa Meer is in her time, of course, probably still is another activist. She's now a member of parliament, Maggie Govender, and she's going to be talking to us. She is on the organizing committee of the Dr. Farooq Meer Memorial. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on.
Okay, sad time for you, is it not?
Very much so, but Farooq had been unwell for quite some time. So, in a way, it's better that he's out of that.
He's
Or
out of the pain.
yes, but the loss is to us who are here.
Mhm. Okay, no doubt you interacted with him back in the days of activism, and probably still kept contact with all of the people in the struggle. How did you meet him, and what sort of an impact did he have on your life? And talk to us about probably work that you people did together over the years.
Okay, I met Farooq when I was a student. So that's like over 30 years ago. I was at the
Okay.
University of Durban, Westville, and we were involved in the student boycotts at the time. And we had just been beaten up by the riot police at UDW, and the campus was locked. We were all barred from attending. And we took a decision. At that time, there were already people who were involved with the NIC, such as Alf Karim, Jay Naidu, Abba Umar, who are on the campus. And we took a decision that we needed to be, as students, more relevant, in the sense that we should get involved in community activities. Of course, it was a bit of a selfish thing as well, because we wanted the community to support the student struggle. And, that also got us involved. And we had then heard of the Natal Indian Congress and the work that it was doing in areas such as Chatsworth and Phoenix. And I was from Chatsworth originally. And we then linked up with the NIC members who were already working in Chatsworth, such as Yunus Mohammed, Roy Pujachi, George Supasad, Ghulam Abu Bakr. And through that, we then met with the NIC executive, and that is when we met Farooq. And I must tell you, it was quite an experience to meet Farooq, because he wasn't a noisy person. He was somebody who was quieter. But what impressed me personally was, firstly, I'm looking at this gentleman who had no reason to be involved in any struggle. He had already kind of arrived. He was a doctor. He was, he could have been wealthy and done all these things that many other doctors did, but he chose to become involved in the struggle for freedom in our country. He chose to perhaps not have as much of the material wealth that he could have had by devoting his life to the struggle. And I was really impressed by that, because I felt this was an excellent example of a humanitarian. And that's what Farooq was. But on the other side as well, he had a wicked sense of humor. And later on, when got married, he used to have a very good relationship with my sons. He used to take time to talk to them. What are you interested in, etc. And that was the other good aspect. But as an activist, one of the things that stood out for us was that when we required resources, remember, we were poor students, we didn't have money, and we were not earning and stuff like that. um, Farooq, through the Natal Indian Congress, would ensure that there was transport provided to the activities that we participated in, that there was food, because an army marches on its stomach, that we would be fed, and that whatever publications we were coming out with were actually funded. And we are immensely grateful for that. The role of the NIC, the National Indian Congress, cannot be underplayed, and the role of someone like Farooq in it is something that must be recognized.
I also understand that he had quite an influence on the Merebank community, very especially the Merebank's young activists of the time. That situation can't be overstated, and this was through his involvement with the Natal Indian Congress. He inspired them, like he did to you and other people like yourself, to rise up and fight for a free, non-racial, democratic South Africa. We also know that the flags of Merebank are flying at half mast as not only the residents of Merebank, but all of us in South Africa mourn the loss of a remarkable individual who dedicated his life for liberation of the people of South Africa. Um, I'm not sure if you've had any interactions with him towards the end of his days. What do you suppose were his thoughts of what is playing out in South Africa right now? Corrupt politicians, unemployment, the youth that are absolutely rudderless. And just what is playing out in our country. It is, from the way I'm looking at it, I've never been an activist, but it is absolutely shameless. And for people like yourselves and the late Dr. Farooq Meer, it must have been absolutely heart wrenching.
Well, there's two sides to it. Farooq was a very constructive person. Um, in the struggle against apartheid, the easiest thing would have been to close your eyes and progress, just continue and pretend it wasn't happening. And as long as you're okay, Joe, it's fine. But he wasn't like that. He got his hands dirty. He ensured that he was active. And one of the areas where he was particularly active would be in the taking up of issues within communities, whether it was the issue of rates or high rents or water shortages, etc. Things that are not too different today. And and he was a person of principle. So Farooq would not, and certainly was not, pleased about the way things were going in the country in terms of things like corruption and abuse of state government resources and state resources, and he was quite vocal about it. He also served at a certain point as a councillor in the eThekwini municipality, and he was very clear in his role as a councillor that there would be no corruption and things would be done right, and the interests of the poor would be best served. And to that extent, he was instrumental also in ensuring that the Howell Road social housing project, which provided housing for lower income people, saw the light of day, unlike other projects which are in abeyance. But having said that, Farooq would have raised his criticisms, and he did openly. He wouldn't hide them. Where he was not happy, and he certainly wasn't happy about the slow rate of economic progress. He was not happy about issues of corruption, and he spoke out about it. But I think had he not, got ill over the past few years, he'd have probably also rolled his sleeves up and looked at how we could address these issues. So rather than just criticizing and complaining about issues, he would have been active in saying, how do we resolve these things? How do we get them addressed? And that is the kind of person that Farooq was. He was an activist in every sense of the word. So yes, he was not pleased with some of the things that are happening, as we all are. We feel that the pace of economic progress is very slow, that service delivery is not what it should be, but also at the same time, the call is roll your sleeves up, get involved in how you can get these issues addressed, whether it's raising your voice against them, whether it's participating with NGOs, organizations of civil society, political organizations, whatever. But get involved in resolving these matters.
He comes from a very active family. They've been active for a long, long time in our communities and in our country. I mean, the late Fatima Meer being his sister. Are you seeing, Maggie, and this is a concern for me as well, that not enough of our younger generation are interested in politics or becoming activists? Because that's what we need, a core of strong, young, healthy activists raising their voices against all of the ills of society that we see playing out today. We need more Fatima and Farooq Meers and Maggie Govenders to take up the baton and carry on. Are you concerned that that is not evident at all in our communities?
It is a source of great concern, but there are pockets of young people who are getting involved in issues around the environment, environmental justice, etc. But I think much more needs to be done. The attainment of freedom in this country, and democracy is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's taken away the kind of edge that we had to fight against something, and we fought against apartheid. We said, get rid of this. It's an unjust system, unequal to people. So it's a double-edged sword in the sense that there are a lot of privileges that young people have today, which they are born with and don't realize that these are actually because you are standing on the shoulders of those who came before and who fought for it. For example, the right to go to a tertiary institution of your choice, the right to go to a school of your choice, access to free public health care, even though there are difficulties there, social grants, all of those things were fought for. The opportunity to have free tertiary education. I can say from my side, when I was a student, I had to work part time in order to partially fund my studies with the assistance of my parents. These days, children from poor backgrounds do have access through NSFAS to tertiary opportunities. So I think that young people are born into a better situation in that regard, compared to the one that we were, and perhaps the edge to fight is less. On the other hand, they are confronted on a scale that's really worrisome with unemployment. Even when they qualify in whatever studies they do, the possibility of getting jobs is remote, and there are large numbers of unemployed graduates. So that is also a challenge. However, one can't fold one's arms, and that's the call to young people. If you can't get a job, look at how you can acquire other skills to become self-employed. If you look at countries like India, Malaysia, etc., young people engage in small enterprises. It's not fancy, it's not going to make you tremendously wealthy, but it will put food on your table. So I think we also need to have a mindset shift amongst our young people to say that they need to become more enterprising, more entrepreneurial as well, without doing the thing about expecting tenders and expecting to get rich quick. Also, the activism. Although we're not fighting apartheid now, the issues for social activism are there, whether it's
Absolutely.
around medication, whether it's around access to work opportunities or training, whether it's around climate issues, all of those issues are still there. Those have not gone away. Unemployment is an issue where people can organize themselves. Access to services is something that people need to organize themselves as well. So young people need to get engaged in that way, and also to look at solutions, propose solutions to the issues confronting them. I mean, we've got a massive unemployment rate in the country, and grants are not going to sustain everyone. They're unsustainable. So people have to look at alternate methods, and you can't always make the cry that government has to do this, that, and the other. We also have to become a country and communities where we assist ourselves. I must say that NGOs, non governmental organizations, have been playing a sterling role in the country, whether it's in relief work, whether it's in supporting people, but really they have been doing that. Civil society is steadily organizing itself more and more after a lapse, and I think that's very positive. And these are all places where young people need to get involved.
Okay, Maggie, so you are on the organizing committee for the Dr. Farooq Moosa Memorial. Um, being on the organizing committee does indicate that you were very deeply involved with him and the struggle, etc., etc. Who are the speakers? What can people attending the memorial, whom can they expect to meet? And then also, I'd like you to share one or two of your really poignant memories you have of the late Dr. Farooq Meer.
Okay, the speakers, we haven't yet got exact names, but we
Oh,
will
so
be,
you're still in the planning phase.
well, we in the confirmation phase.
Okay.
We've invited and we are assured that we will get a former UDF leader who will be attending. We will get someone from the African National Congress. We will get colleagues of Dr. Mir, who served with him in the Italian Congress, who will be addressing this meeting. And they're all high profile people. And there will be various messages of support. There will be speakers who were students at the time when he was in the leadership of the NIC, but who have now moved on. So we are going to be getting very high profile speakers. We don't want to announce the names because these are all busy people. And,
Of course.
you know, and we don't
When
want to
when
confuse.
when is the memorial happening?
The memorials is on Saturday, the 5th of August, from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Sastry College Hall. And we would encourage people to attend physically. We know that, people these days prefer to look at social media, etc. But we would like people to attend physically as a tribute to this wonderful person that we have lost.
You've told me much about your initial meetings with Dr. Farooq Meer. What is the one thing that you'll most remember him for?
I think uh, you know, he wasn't pretentious. In the community, persons like Farooq, who were professionally, very highly rated, etc., could have been extremely pretentious, could have brushed off young people, but he didn't have that. And I recall going on a trip with him to meet with the Transvaal, myself and my late husband, to meet with comrades from the Transvaal Indian Congress halfway in KZN, in Escort. And we took my son, who was very young at the time. And Farooq spent the time making sure that this child was entertained, that this child didn't get bored on this long trip, that this child was fed and all of that. And that really did impress me.
Wow. Maggie Govender, thank you indeed for talking with us, sharing some of your favorite memories of the late Dr. Farooq Moosa Meer, anti-apartheid activist. All we can say is gone too soon, but may his soul rest in peace. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning. God
Thank
bless.
you. Bye.
It is exactly 9:51. Standing by to talk with us is Amina Frenzy, and she is a broadcast journalist. I so am looking forward to chatting with her this morning.